What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Jefferson Mercy, and welcome to another episode of Creepypastas. And today we're gonna read Smile Dog. Now, I'm gonna read this word for word. So, I'm just gonna read what it says. I first met in person with Mary E. in the summer of 2007. I had arranged with her husband of 15 years, Terrence, to see her for an interview. Mary had initially agreed, since I was not a newsman, but rather an amateur writer gathering information for an early college assignment, and if all went according to plan, some pieces of fiction. We scheduled the interview for a particular weekend when I was in Chicago, or unrelated business. But at the last moment, Mary changed her mind and locked herself in the couple's bedroom, refusing to meet with me. For half an hour, I sat with Terrence as we camped outside the bedroom door. I listened and taking notes as he was attempting fruitlessly to calm his wife down. The things Mary had made little sense, or saying just made no sense to fit with the pattern that I was expecting. Though I could not see her, I could tell from her voice that she was crying, and more often than that, her objections to speaking with me centered about an incoherent diatribe on her dreams, her nightmares. Terrence apologized profusely when we ceased the exercise, and I did my best to take it in with stride. Recall that I wasn't a reporter in search of a story, but merely a curious young man in search of misinformation. Besides, I thought all the time I could perhaps find another similar case if I put my mind and resources to it. Mary E. was a slice off of a small Chicago-based bulletin board system in 1992, when she first encountered Smile.jpg, and her life changed forever. She and Terrence have been married for only 5 months. Mary was one of an estimated 400 people who saw the image when it was posted on a hyperlink on the BBS, though she was the only one who had spoken openly about the experience. The rest have remained anonymous or perhaps dead. In 2005, when I was only in 10th grade, Smile.jpg was first brought to my attention by my burgeoning interest in web-based phenomena. Mary was the most often cited victim of what is sometimes referred to as Smile.dog, the being Smile.jpg is reputed to display. What caught my interest, other than the obvious macabre elements of the cyber legend and my proclivity towards such things, was the sheer lack of instant information, usually to the point where people don't believe it exists rather than a rumor or a hoax. It is unique because, though the entire phenomena centers on the picture file, that the file is nowhere to be found on the internet, certainly many photo-manipulated similarities layer the web, showing up the most frequency on sites such as Imageboard, 4chan, so particularly the X-focused paranormal subboard. It was suspected that these are fakes because they do not have the effect the true Smile.jpg is believed to have. Sun onset temporal lobe epilepsy and acute anxiety. This purported reaction in the viewer is one of the reasons why the phantom-like Smile.jpg is regarded as such disdain, since it is patently absurd. Though, depending on whom you ask, the reluctance to acknowledge Smile's existence might be just as much out of fear as it is out of disbelief. Neither Smile.jpg nor Smile.dog is mentioned anywhere on Wikipedia, though the website features articles on such other such scandalous shock sites. To any attempt to create a page, particularly to Smile, is similarly defeated or destroyed by any of the encyclopedia's many administrators. Encounters with Smile.jpg are the stuff of internet legend. Mary's story is not unique. There are unverified rumors of Smile.jpg showing up in the early days of Usenet, and one even persistent tale that in 2002 a hacker flooded the forums of humor and satire websites, such as Something Awful forums, with a deluge picture of the Smile Dog, rendering almost half the forum's users at the time epileptic. It is also that in the mid to late 90s that Smile.jpg circulated on Usenet and as an attachment of the chain email with the subject line, "Smile, God loves you." Yet, despite the huge exposure that these stunts would generate, there are very few people who admit to having experienced any of them, and no trace of the file or any link has ever been discovered. Those who claim to have seen it often weekly joke that they were far too busy to save a copy of the picture to their hard drive. However, all alleged victims offer the same description of the power. A dog-like creature, usually described as appearing similar to a Siberian husky, illuminated by the flash of a camera, sits in a dim room, only the background detail that is visible to the human hand extending from the darkness near the left of the side of the frame. The hand is empty, but is usually described as beckoning. Of course, or most attention is given to the dog, or dog-like creature, or some victims are more certain than others in what they claim to have seen. The muzzle of the beast is reluctantly split into a wide grin, revealing 2 rows of very white, very straight, very sharp, yet very human-looking teeth. This, of course, is not a description given immediately after viewing the image, but rather a recollection of the victims who claim to have seen this picture endlessly repeated in their mind's eye during the time they are, in reality, having epileptic fits. These fits are reported to continue intermittently while the victims sleep, resulting in very vivid and disturbing nightmares that may be treated with some medication, though in some it's more effective than others. Mary E., I assumed, was not on effective medication. That is why, after my visit to her apartment in 2007, I sent out feelers to several folklore and urban legend-oriented news groups and websites and mailing lists, hoping to find the name of a supposed victim of Smile.jpg who felt more interested in talk about his experiences. For a time, nothing happened, and at length I forgot completely about my pursuits. Since I had begun my freshman year of college, and quite busy, Mary contacted me via email, however, near the beginning of March 2008. Dear insert name from Mary, last summer's interview. Dear Mr. L, I'm very incredibly sorry about my behavior last summer when you came to interview me. I hope you understand that it was no fault of yours, but rather my own problems that led me to act as I did. I realized that I could have handled the situation more decorously, but however, I hope you will forgive me. At the time, I was just afraid. You see, for 15 years, I have been haunted by that dog. That dog comes to me in my sleep every night. I know that sounds silly, but it's true, but there is an ineffable quality about my dreams, my nightmares, that makes them completely unlike any dream that I have ever had. I do not move, do not speak, I simply just look ahead, and the only thing ahead of me is the scene of that image. I see the beckoning hand, and I see the dog. It talks to me. It's not a dog, of course, though I'm not quite sure what it really is. It tells me it will leave me alone if I do what asked. All I know I must do, it says, is spread the word. That is how it phrases its demands, and I know exactly what it means. It wants me to show it to someone else. And I could. A week after my incident, I received the mail in a manila envelope with no return address. Inside was a 3.5-inch floppy diskette. Without knowing of having to check, I knew precisely what was on it. I thought for a long time about my options. I could show it to a stranger, a co-worker. I could even show it to Terrence, but as much as the idea disgusted me, it was what would happen to them. And well, if Smile Dog kept its word, I could sleep, yet if it lied, what would I do? And who would to say something worse would come for me, or not, as if I did what the creature asked. So I did nothing for 15 years, though I kept this diskette hidden amongst my things. Every night for 15 years, this dog comes to me in my sleep and demanded that I spread the word. For 15 years, I had stood strong, like a beast, though there are very hard times. Many of my fellow victims on the BBS board where I first encountered it stopped posting. Some of them I've heard have died, others remained silent, some disappearing off the face of the web. They are the ones that I worry about the most. I sincerely hope you will forgive me, Mr. L. But my last summer when you contacted me and my husband about an interview, I was near the breaking point, and I decided I was not going to give you the diskette. I would not care if the dog was lying or not. I wanted it to end. You were a stranger, someone I had no connection with, and I thought I would not feel sorrow when you took the diskette as part of your research and sealed your own fate. Before you arrived, I realized what I was doing. I was planning to ruin your life, and I could not stand the thought. In fact, I still could not. I'm ashamed, Mr. L, and I hope this is a warning that would dissuade you from further investigation of this topic. You may in time encounter someone who is, if not weaker than I am, then wholly more depraved, someone that will not hesitate to follow this dog's orders. Stop still whole. Sincerely, Mary E. Terrence contacted me later that month that the news that his wife had died. While cleaning up the various things she had left behind, closing email accounts and the like, he happened upon the above message. He was a man in shambles. He wept as he told me to listen to his wife's advice. He found the diskette, he revealed, and burned it until it was nothing but a stinking pile of blackened plastic. The part that disturbed him, though, however, was how the diskette had hissed as it melted, almost like some sort of animal, he said. I will admit that I was a little uncertain about how to respond to this. At first, I thought perhaps it was a joke, with a couple belatedly playing with the situation in order to get a rise out of me. A quick check of several Chicago newspapers' online obituaries, however, proved that Mary E. was indeed dead. There was, of course, no mentions of suicides at all in the article. I decided that for a time at least, I would not further pursue this subject, especially I had finals coming up at the end of May. But the world has odd ways of testing us. For almost a full year, I returned from my disastrous review with Mary E. I received another email. Hello, I found your email address through a mailing list through your profile said you were interested in Smile Dog, but I had said that it was not as bad as everyone was saying it, so I just sent it here. Just spreading the word. The final line chilled me to the bone. According to the email client, there was one file attached called naturallysmile.jpg. I considered downloading it for some time, but it was most likely a fake. I imagined it, and it wasn't correct. I wasn't never wholly convinced of Smile's, powers. Mary E.'s account was shaking me, yes, but she was probably mentally unbalanced anyways. After all, how could a simple image of do what Smile was to accomplish? What kind of creature was it that could break one's mind with the only power of the eye? And if some things were painfully absurd, then why did the legend exist at all? If I downloaded the image, if I looked at it, and if Mary turned out to be correct, if Smile Dog came to me in my dreams demanding I spread the word, and what would I do? Would I live my life as Mary had, find the urge to give it until I died, or would I simply spread the word, eager to put this to rest? And if I chose the latter, who could I give it to? Who would I burden and trust? Or in turn, at most? If I went through with my earlier intention to write a short article about Smile.jpg, I decided I could attach it as evidence, and anyone that would read the article, anyone that would took interest would be affected, and even assuming the Smile.jpg would attach to the email was genuine, would I be capricious enough to save myself in that matter? Yes. Yes, I could. Could I spread the word? Yes. Yes, I could. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was SmileDog.jpg. Now, cliches aside, no blood cliche. That was really good. And I really like how it acted like as if like something that you'd see on the Sun and Awful forums. Now, granted aside, the only cliche is, why would Mary E. act so crazy over a picture of a Siberian Husky with human-like dentures in it? I mean, that's cliche as hell. I mean, like, the thing is, it's a Husky, okay? Like, they say that Siberian Huskies are not scary because, one, I've seen Siberian Huskies in person. They're really cool dogs. So, yeah, I'm a Husky fan. So, yeah, I like Siberian Huskies. So, this actually kind of more interested me rather than scared because it's more of a unique tale. It kind of acts like one of those internet campfire stories that is, like, meant to be a campfire story that you would tell if you were with your friends in the woods, like telling spooky stories at night before going to sleep in the tents. The only other thing I would change if I was to change was if Mary was, like, let's say diagnosed with, like, let's say some form of psychosis that was caused by this picture, or it was caused by her anxiety due to the picture that she withstood for 15 years. That's the only thing I could change if it was to make it better, to have her alive, but she had to recover. A very long recovery, but sadly that's beyond me and that's beyond the case because she died. Well, the character Mary died in the story. So, what did you think of this creepypasta, and what would you do to change it better? To make it better, sorry. This is Jeffrey Sembersky signing out.